Hello and welcome to the latest of our NSF webinars. Today I'm going to be talking about how to achieve a quick and efficient approval of incident reports. Now that can be an investigation report, it can be a deviation report, call it what you will. How do you help other people who are writing them? How do you review them remotely? How do you actually hit that common standard of understanding? I'm Rachel Carmichael and I've worked for NSF for the last 4.5 years. And before that, I had a mixed career both in industry, working for an American multinational, and then for the UK MHRA. Throughout that time, I've reviewed countless deviations, and it's those companies that have achieved a common standard between the people who are writing, the people who are reviewing, that are able to achieve this in an efficient way. You've got to have absolute clarity as to the process you're talking about. Something has happened, gone wrong, isn't quite what you're expecting it to be. You've had a departure from the agreed procedure. And straight away, you should do some sort of initial assessment. You've got to be thinking who, what, where, and when, and you want to collect this at the time the event's found. So give some sort of structured document that details who was there, what they were looking at, what happened in the run-up to the event, how did they find the event, and what did they do in response to the event, and then exactly which room it was in, what equipment are we talking about, and when did that happen, the date, the time, and how long do you think it carried on for? Because very quickly you need to make sure you've prevented the further use of any adversely affected material and started to work out what the boundary is of this event. If you believe it's only this batch, you're going to have to be able to prove it. So can you? And early, you want to start collecting information about the actual process, what's the specific range, what's the set points, and who will have more information about the process, who in your organisation is going to be able to help you. Now, you then go on to a correction, and a correction just gets you back to where you started, really. If you've had a spillage, you mop it up and you reissue the products so that you can continue to process. But the next step in terms of moving the incident forward is notification and risk assessment. Notification goes outside your department. Who do you inform? Make sure that the rest of the operation understands this has happened. And in terms of a documented risk assessment, is this an event which is really serious? We need a team on it. We need to be completing the investigation within a couple of days. Or is this something which is really rather trivial? They happen, but we're tracking and trending them just to see what happens. And then perhaps it could be a middle of the road event. One person will do the investigation and one person will be looking into it. Certainly if it's potentially critical, you're looking at perhaps some external communications, maybe to customers, maybe to the regulators. Might you need to consider a recall? So that's something you need to think about very early and get documented why you did what you did. Because we're going into the investigation next, and the key thing here is have we got the right people with the right skill set to be able to do it. It's quite clear they've got to understand the product, they've got to understand the process, but they've also got to be able to write, and they've got to be genuinely nosy. You want people who are going to be interested in the minutiae of the operation. So once we've got all of the information about the event, that investigation, we're going to root cause analysis. And here you're digging into the reasons why this happened. What is there in your company's structure, in your systems, in your procedures that have contributed to this event? You'll then have a corrective action. This will stop the event from recurring. And then you'll continue perhaps with some ongoing monitoring and trending. Certainly you're looking to see if you've accidentally made the situation worse by your corrective action. Preventative actions, they go to perhaps looking outside of this particular site. So you're looking at other sites within the same company, and maybe other departments within the same company, because you're looking to prevent it from occurring at all in those areas. For both the preventive actions and the corrective actions, what you want to make sure is you've got the good effectiveness checks in place, and the extent of those are going to be based on the degree of risk. So you can decide how far you're going to go with effectiveness checks based on quality risk management. So this is your process. And in terms of what you must do, EU GMP is a bit more descriptive than the US FDA, but in both regions you see the same kind of process and reports. Because what we're looking for is when you depart from your instructions, your written instructions, you need to do an investigation. Now, within the EU, they've even gone several steps further. They've demanded the need for root cause analysis and the appropriate corrective and preventative actions. But where your true root cause can't be determined, you've got to look at your most likely root cause. And if you're going to say it's down to human error, you need to be able to demonstrate that you've looked at process, procedural, or system-based errors in your report. So your corrective and preventative actions need to be in response to those root causes, and then the effectiveness is monitored and assessed, as we said earlier, in line with quality risk management. So EU GMP is far more explicit in the expectation for this process. But if you're going to deliver all of this, you're going to need more than just the instructions in EU GMP. And in order to get efficient and effective approval of these, you're going to reach common standards. Now, at the highest level, you're going to need your policy that details what the structure is and the intent of the system. You're going to have some sort of procedure that covers how you use your electronic system. And you're going to have procedures that cover what kind of tools you've got available, how you choose those, and then how you write your investigation, because we want to be very clear on the key steps for content, style, and structure. So 5 to Thrive is a really good set of requirements to have. We want immediate engagement. You don't leave these things for a week. No one can remember anything after 3 days. But immediately engage, get to the place where the event occurred. So you get down to the shop floor and work through the process, ask lots of questions, talk to people about it. So then obviously the triage we talked about, this risk prioritization, using a documented risk assessment so that it's clear how you reach the decision you reach. And then we document in real time using structured worksheets. So if those pieces are in place, as long as you've got the right people and the right process, you're going to be supported by investigation reporting toolkit, how you're going to use effective language. Effective language is all about not getting excited, making it sound professional. If you put letters in capitals and in bold, it gets very dramatic very quickly. So what we're looking for is something that's very calm, very neutral, very professional. In terms of human error checklists, we're talking here about considering the environment and the impact to the individuals as they were doing the work, and consider what the options were around them, whether the interruptions, whether the phone's going, whether there's somebody putting them undue pressure. These are all elements that can be considered. And then you'll have some sort of decision pyramid where you look at potential impact to patient, to product licenses, site licenses, quality management system, pharmaceutical quality system, good manufacturing practice, and to determine the scope and the boundary of your instance. With all of these in place, you'll then want specific instructions on the report. Now, there's 3 key outcomes from your report. You must tell the story, and so for that, you need a start, middle, and end, and make sure that that follows through. You want assurance that all of the product that has been described as being affected by this deviation is safe and is effective for release and distribution. And you must demonstrate an understanding of the issue, what the root cause was, and how you're going to prevent recurrence. Now, within this report, we want logical flow. We want to make sure we've got minimum number of words. So if we can use pictures, if we can use diagrams, if we can use bullet points, it all helps in making it easier to read. And if it's easier to read and to see what's happening, that's going to help you with your review and approval. We talk about the right language, and by this we're talking about using technical writing skills. So we're looking at the need for good grammar, being concise, using active voice, so that's things like shut the door. It's a command statement, if you like, certainly more helpful than using something which is a bit ambiguous. You want to use positive statements, so close the valve rather than do not open the valve. And then avoid long sentences. 15 to 20 words per sentence is more than enough. And make sure you punctuate correctly. You can massively change the impact of a sentence by having the wrong punctuation. You need the right level of detail. I've got to be able to follow the story. I've got to be able to see who did what, where, why, and when. And then in terms of completeness, I want to know what you thought about looking into rather than just what you've decided is the result. Reading this report, you've got to make it very clear to everybody that it's got to be easily read by somebody external. And we're looking to identify the gaps in your systems and procedures. Make sure that once they've been identified, they get addressed. Fundamental conclusions got to look at your product impact. So in order to achieve this, it's really helpful to have a standard document which describes what you must see at the minimum in this report. So the who and the what covers off everybody that was involved, those that were consulted and those informed. And this isn't for disciplinary purposes. This is so that you can understand which areas are having the most challenging times. Maybe they need additional training. Maybe you actually don't have a great process in that area. And the good staff are hiding the fact that the process is poor. We got to look at the what, make sure we're very clear on the lot numbers, on the equipment, make sure we've got absolute clarity on what was expected and what actually happened. So a good sentence is going to be that this product failed in moisture testing with a result of 22 with a specified limit of 15 to 20. Those types of sentences make it very clear which process failed, in which test did it fail, what was the result, and what was the expectation. So I would expect to see that type of sentence in every deviation. You're going to define the boundary, make that very clear within the report, make sure that all the possibilities are considered, and then have a rationale for why you decided your limitations. We've got to be clear on where and when and why, so you document the actual scene, the room, the equipment, those GMP areas that are adjacent, those that are non-GMP areas, when it was found and when you believe it occurred, and then go into the whys. I would recommend using 5 whys as a minimum tool for most of your events that require root cause analysis, but where you get into more significant events, fishbone diagrams are really helpful. Now, there are lots of other tools and you can use whichever tool you like, but you've got to make sure that it's very clear what tool you're using, why you've chosen it, and made sure that it's documented well in your report. Those where you've got multiple root causes, you want to see the most likely root cause, and you've got to make sure that you're very clear that there's a link from your root causes into your actions. You're going to confirm what the event was and make sure that you have got those key points of the classification apologies for the event, whether it's critical, major or other, or a repeat other. Are you going to do any additional testing? Are you going to be making sure you've got your root cause analysis really clearly documented? We're going to make sure that if we've notified external to the company, if we've notified customers, or we've notified regulators of the potential for a recall, that's all going to be documented clearly. And then the essential part of the report is the conclusion. What happened and why, the root cause or the most likely root cause. And we're going to make sure that we're very clear on the impact of the batch as a result of the event. Could other products have been affected? If not, why not? Make sure that's clear. And how did you correct it, and how will recurrence be prevented? So we want to see that flow from your root cause analysis into your action. Obviously, the correction happens at the discovery. You can detail what you did, but the key ones here are the corrective actions because they prevent the recurrence. In terms of effectiveness checks, on the basis of quality risk management, you will conduct one of these. You need to be very clear on what approach you're taking to achieve that. And then in the overall documentation pack, have you got all the documents that you've referred to, all of the notes and all of the records? Finally, for style, obviously we're looking for that logical flow and make sure that you can have the most succinct report possible. Use diagrams where you can, pictures where you can, and write in line with technical writing expectations. So we're going to make sure it's complete and it's going to show you working. So it's not just the answer. Now, if you've got one of these documents in place of the elements described in the last 3-4 slides, you enable your writers and your reviewers and your approvers all to be very clear on what is expected out of this report. And it makes it much easier both to feedback as to what it was that was lacking, but also to then actually review and approve in a quick manner. I hope that this has been of help to you, and if you have any questions, please do feel free to contact us. We've got a series of e-learning programs available now, but really helpfully, please look in our resource library. There's an awful lot of information there for anybody who is working on the quality system and trying to improve that part of your process. Thank you very much.